Welcome everyone to another installment of Thrive with Artwork Archive. We always like to start these off with welcoming any of those that are new to Artwork Archive, as well as thanking our existing users for helping us continue to improve the platform. For those of you that are new and unfamiliar with Artwork Archive, we are a platform that provides artists the tools they need to get organized, manage and grow their business, and showcase their work. As I just saw, a big group of users just joined. Just a reminder, if you missed anything in the beginning or have to step away or have to leave early, we'll be recording this and that will be posted tomorrow. So the theme for today's Thrive and what we're going to cover this week is really all about the various, or this session is really all about the various reports you can generate within the system, as well as the many benefits that come with them. So while we'll focus a lot on the time saving and professional aspects, we're also going to cover what reports to use when, the ease of sharing, collaboration, and the peace of mind that comes with having all of this under one roof. And as always, we want to get through this without me droning on for the entire time as quickly as possible so we can get to your specific questions. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'm actually going to hop out of this presentation really quick and jump right into the product. All right, so let's first start with where to find the reports. So, this is the general interface. You've got the menu on the left side with the various features. Whatever you're clicking here is going to appear in this middle part, but there are really two places to find reports. One is the general reports menu right here. And this is not only going to be the kind of central repository for any and all reports you've generated in the past, it's also going to be a place where you can go ahead and generate new reports. Oh, and by the way, Alyssian, do you want to mention to the group how they can go about questions?
I was just about to post it in the chat since you were rolling through. But yeah, we'd love to hear your questions. Justin will be answering questions at the end of this session. So as questions come up, please post them in the Q&A section. It's located on the bottom bar of your Zoom screen. Use that icon, please, instead of chat, because we'll be going through the Q&A section to answer your questions at the end. So throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, again, please put them in the Q&A section, and you can leave the chat for just introducing yourself. Thanks.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. So we're on the topic of where to find them. So where to find them? This reports menu toggle right here will take you to where the reports are. There are kind of two places to generate the reports. So next we're going to jump into how to generate them. You can either go to the reports tab here, click on new report, or back at the main artwork screen, you will see a new report icon here. And as you go through the system, let's say where you were on the locations tab and you were going to do a location-based report to see, what galleries of yours are the most performant, or you wanted to do mailing labels for contacts, you can jump in here and do a contact report or an address label report. So you'll notice this new report icon right here in context for when you're looking at that particular screen. That's where you can generate those specific to that feature or the place you are on the site. And then if you just want the more general kind of central place for any and all reports, you can jump here and it has by category and a list to most of our major reports. So now we've talked about, where to find them, how to generate them. I'm really quickly going to go to how to share them. You will notice this little kind of upside down triangle here that allows you to view, download, copy, and share. So if you wanted to see what one looks like, you can preview it. If you want to download your own copy, you can do that. You can share the URL, or you can click our share feature, which you can share the report directly with any one of your contacts, a group, or an email. Let's say you didn't have in your contact group, maybe someone you met at an art fair or something like that you wanted to follow up with. You can just drop their email in there along with a personalized message, and the system will send it out for you. This upside down triangle, for lack of a better word, is something you'll find throughout the site when you want to share, original versions of the image or private rooms or anything else. So getting familiar with that feature is really helpful, as it is the easiest way to collaborate and share with others. One last thing I wanted to show here whenever you see something in Artwork Archive that has this little button here, you have the ability to edit and regenerate. So let's say you had a specific report that you generated and you wanted to slightly modify it for a different person that you'd be sending it to. You can click this button. It's going to have all the same features and settings that you had in the original one, and you can just replicate it. And that can be a really major time saver. One last kind of in general comment, for those of you that missed the CRM featured webinar last week or a few weeks ago, every single thing you share here is recorded not only at the report level, but also at the contact level. So if I were to share this report with someone, it would keep a record of who I shared it with, when I shared it with them, and I can go back and consult their contact and see everything I've shared with them in past conversations. Also a really handy feature. So let's jump into some of this. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to say, can we take a step back? When you were in the report and showing how you can share it out, you mentioned groups. Can you explain a little bit about what sharing to a group means? Because I feel like that's a really big time saver.
Sure. So a lot of the times you may be, let's say you have contacts and you have past collectors of your work. Maybe you've grouped things into a VIP collectors group, or you have ways of identifying your individual contacts and grouping them into themes. Maybe you're a multidisciplinary artist, or you work in different mediums and you know that you have some people that like your oils or certain themes you're working on. You can create groups of contacts for whatever suits your personal needs. And that can facilitate the sharing. So rather than having to share with each individual collector or each individual I want to reach out to, I can go ahead and share that report. Instead of going to share with an individual, I can share with that group at large. So as Alyssa mentioned, that's a real helpful time saver. So let's jump into some of the specific reports. I'm going to start with the inventory report because that is kind of like the Swiss Army knife of reports. This is the most commonly used report, probably the most generally used because it is so versatile. And an inventory report, basically, let's just take a look at one, has a thumbnail of whatever image you chose to include, the title, as well as whatever details you choose to include on the side. And we have a wide variety of details you can include. You can custom tailor this to your need. One of the most common kind of tricks of the trade we like to talk about with this is oftentimes you are asked for high resolution images of your artwork. So you want a really easy way to streamline the process of getting your work in front of whoever you're presenting it to. Let's say it's a gallery in this particular case. The inventory report has an option that can send that streamlined lower res report that's going to be easily transferred via email, but also has the ability to include links to the high resolution version images. So if you were to see, I'm creating an inventory report from scratch here. I can name this however I want. I can include a profile image or a logo, or if you really want to make it stylized, you can include your own letterhead. I mentioned there was a wide variety of parameters you can include here. And just to note the specific feature, include URL for the original image files. This is an absolutely great way for getting links to those high resolution version files, so you don't have to find creative ways to share a whole bunch of large oversized images via email, or running into size limits or them having download problems. This is just a great way to streamline that, so these links are included in the inventory report itself. Going back to the inventory report, this can be used for insurance purposes, gallery presentation purposes. There's so many different things you can do with the inventory report and customize it to your specific needs. The next report I want to jump into is the portfolio page. Portfolio page is really the report that's most commonly used when you want to have the image do the talking over the details. So this uses a really high resolution printed version and is often commonly used for handouts when you're actually going to physically drop things off. Although you can send it digitally, a lot of people gravitate toward the portfolio page because it's a great way to create little books of your works, or select a few, do a drop off along with your bio or statement or other information when you're introducing yourself to a gallery. A lot of people use portfolio pages to submit to grants and residency programs when they're looking for samples of the work. Tear sheets, and by the way, I know I'm rattling through this quite quickly. We'll be able to cover any specific questions you all have at the end of this. A quick summary on the portfolio page in the inventory report, and this is me taking off Artwork Archive hat and going more to a general commentary from serving on a lot of juries and having a gallery space for such a long time. It really is a way to present yourself professionally. There is a huge difference in perception when someone walks in and hands me something that has clearly been well thought out and professionally presented. And that's not only true for the initial introduction, but it's also true for ongoing relations. I cannot tell you how many times I've had an invoice come to me on a Post-it note or a bar napkin or anything like that. And it does make a difference to really have these things generated with a professional look and feel, and it sets you apart from other artists. One of the next reports I want to jump into is the tear sheet. Think of the tear sheet as kind of a quick way to generate a price list. Maybe you have an upcoming show and you want to give people a quick peek at what is going to be included in that show, some of the price lists. Maybe you want them to see that before anybody else, or you just want to print it out as handouts. A lot of people do these when they're going to an art fair and want to just have a general price sheet to share with people, like at their booth or things like that. So once again, the tear sheet is a really great way to do quick and easy, limited details, thumbnails, along with pricing. And once again, you can include your letterhead up there. The next one, a lot of you do your own shows and like the ability to generate your own wall labels. So with this system, you can generate a number of different size wall labels that you can either use to do your own cutouts on cardstock or whatever you prefer. And as you'll see, if I go back to the wall label generator, if I go to artwork labels, you'll see that I can decide what options I want to have included in it. And then I have a number of different size options that I can include on or that I can choose to have printed out on standard Avery templates. So these are a really popular feature for those of you that do your own shows or want your own labeling. Some of these are actually used also for stickers on the backs of things you're shipping out, just to have those additional details on that as a shipping label. Some people use them for inventorying purposes. So they're fairly versatile as well. While I'm on the topic of labels, the system can also generate QR codes. So the Artist Master version of the software has this feature called QR code labels, and you can have an internal link and an external link. So the internal link would be a wall label that's created along with the QR code that, if you scanned, would be your own specific internal record. So this is less commonly used by artists, as it's mostly for inventorying purposes. If you're a prolific artist that has countless works in storage or spread out, or just countless amounts of works you're trying to better track, this is super commonly used for that as the sticker on the back, because then you can quickly scan it. And if I scanned it, it would take me to this internal private record where I can say, oh no, I'm going to move it to this new location, or you can take some specific action on it. The external link would be a link to your actual public profile page. So let's say you use this as a wall label in an upcoming show. Anybody that scans it, they could use that to view the work later and just peruse the work, learn more about it later on your public-facing version of that particular artwork. Some other common reports. Let's say you sell something and really want to generate something official to go along. So let's say I sold this and the artist is or the purchaser is requesting a certificate of authenticity. You can generate a certificate of authenticity with click of a button and can even physically sign it. If you look at what those look like, here's an example of a certificate of authenticity, and you can custom tailor the messaging to suit your needs as well. Consignment reports for those of you who do consign work to galleries, coffee shops, other spaces. In addition to having full location management and tracking built into the system, you can also generate consignment reports. So in this case, here's some things I have at Whitecube. I could go in, generate a new report, click consignment report, and it would create a consignment report for that specific outlet. And those look like this. So here's an example of a consignment sheet. And once again, in the notes section, you can really use this to your advantage to, to put in any specific, legal language you want in there, any agreements, any pre-arranged, commission payouts or details, and you can include that information there as well. Invoices. So the system, this is not so much a report as it is just one of the many things the system can generate. In addition to being able to track all your sales, other kinds of revenue, expenses, etc., the system can generate invoices that are either just plain non-digital payment related invoices or invoices that have integrated digital payment options. And to look at what an invoice looks like, here's an example of just a general PDF invoice that doesn't have any digital payment options. And then you have some options on what the one looks like for the digital payment options for invoices. I assume I'm going to have some questions on that, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that particular one. This is where I'm going to get a little bit off the beaten path and talk about finances in general. I mentioned the system can not only track the sales of your artwork, but also other revenue streams. A lot of you have turned to teaching or have always been teaching and have additional revenue streams. Some of you do commissions, advising, consulting. You can track any and all those revenue items in the system. Additionally, you can record all expenses. So these may be memberships to an institution like Oil Painters of America or something like that. The supplies you consume, in the creation of your art. And in addition to general expense tracking, you can also tie expenses to a specific work of art. So I want to fixate on this just for a moment because I think it's a really underrated feature. Pricing is really hard to do, just in general. And I think one of the things we all forget very easily when creating our work is what actually went into it outside of time. For those of us that use third-party fabrication services or anything like that, or more expensive materials, it's really nice to be able to go in and say, okay, here's a new item, it's an expense, and you can, let's say, in this case, fabrication, I can tie that to a specific work of art, and that will calculate all of the expenses I have into that particular piece of art. So when I'm pricing it, I can factor that into the cost basis. So that was a slight little tangent because I love that feature and I find it underrated. When it comes back to reporting, this is where the system can really save you a ton of time, specifically around tax time. So in addition to being able to give you some business intelligence on what your sales were for a specific date, if you want to compare 2020 to 2021, what clients you've sold to, you can really get granular with details you want to tease out with some of this reporting, but you can also do general revenue and expense reporting, as well as income reports that will summarize things in a really nice kind of PDF format. Or for those of you doing your own accounting, or those of you working with a third-party accounting system or accountant, you can generate really easy to use spreadsheets that have complete tallies of your sales, the taxes, the expenses, etc. And like I said, that can be a huge time saver during tax season and just general business intelligence. I think it's good practice to know what your production versus sales is over time. That can be helpful from just getting you some insights on what's working and what's not. Two last things before I go get to questions. One I mentioned earlier, for those of you who do physical mailings, one of the other reports is you can do custom address labels that you can use and print off and put on your own envelopes if that's something you're interested in. And then lastly, we really like the idea of our clients using Artwork Archive because they get genuine value, not because they feel trapped. So at any time, you can click a button and export all of your data to a spreadsheet, in Excel format or common spreadsheet format. And that's something we like to know, because a lot of you like to have the peace of mind of being able to download the data for yourself. And this comes in a format that you can easily transition to another system. Okay, that was way more talking than anybody needed, I'm sure. Elysian, throw me a lifeline here and let's get to some of the questions.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to recap a few questions that came in while you were presenting, Justin, and I answered within the Q&A box. So for the attendees, you should all be seeing the written answers that I provided, but I'm going to go over them quickly, especially Justin, if there's anything you want to expand upon. So Nadine asked a great question about whether you'd be speaking to portfolios and how it can be used to submit to galleries. So just reinforce the fact that you can create a portfolio page or an inventory report and then share that directly to your gallery contacts from the platform using that share function that Justin showed. And then what's great is that if with the gallery being a contact record, you then see on their contact record what you have sent to them, when, what pieces, etc. Patricia asked if she can make a certificate of authenticity, and that I believe was covered, correct, Justin?
Yes, and if you want to make a certificate of authenticity, just really quick, all you do is click into the specific artwork you want to make that for, new report, certificate of authenticity, and then you can generate it right then and there. And anything you generate will pop into this reports tab.
And that's been, I believe, inventory reports and COAs are our most popular reports.
They're
People love
definitely
the
some of our most
certificate of
popular reports
authenticity.
for sure.
Yeah. Okay, great. Can we add the QR codes on the artwork labels, Astrea? And yeah, so the QR codes can also act as wall label, as artwork labels, for sure, especially given what Justin shared about that you can use an external link that will drive the viewer to your public profile and let them enable them to learn more about you, your process, and the other works in your portfolio.
And this is one of these things, that's a great question. So these are the current QR labels. We are talking about making, let me give you a short version of this. In November, we are going to have a dedicated meeting about some improvements we can make to wall labels with overall styling, layout, etc. So if anybody has feedback or specific opinions or things you'd like to see, as always, don't hesitate to either send us an email to info@artworkarchive.com or to just send us a note via chat through the app, because this is going to be a big discussion for us in November. We have had a lot of people requesting the ability to include a thumbnail of the image and the QR code and a couple combinations of existing labels we have. So we're really always open to feedback on how you think we can better serve your needs.
And two questions, one to the group, and feel free to respond via chat. Does everyone know what a QR code is? Does anyone need to?
And if not, I'm happy to do
the
Cliff Notes for. So really quick,
Cliff Notes would be great.
Okay, so the quick version of it is QR codes were this thing that happened many years ago that went out of style quickly because you needed, specific hardware or a specific app to do anything with it. Both Apple and Android decided to make it native to their platforms. So now all modern day mobile phones can scan a QR code natively. COVID also dramatically accelerated the adoption of QR codes, given so many people doing contactless things and not having physical menus. So many of you may have experienced these at a restaurant when scanning the QR code for a menu. Similarly, in Artwork Archive, when you scan that QR code, it brings them to the publicly viewable version of that artwork. So, they can experience it at home, offline, or outside the environment that they're viewing it in.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of the QR code conversation, someone came in late and said that they missed the tutorial on how to create a QR code report. I think this is a good time, Justin, to show everyone within Help Docs how we outline how to create all of these reports so people can find answers.
Great. So Artwork Archive has 3 types of support, and your best friend is going to be this little question mark right here. So in addition to this chat where you can, talk to one of the members of the team that happens to be on, this question mark enables you to click that and be taken to our self-help guide. So on the topic of QR codes, if I were to just type in QR code, well, if I misspell it, even if I misspell it, it still worked. And you see generating QR codes. So you're not only brought to, some step-by-step directions, but you also have screenshots. And when there's a video app applicable, you can go through and watch the video as well. So this little question mark up here is a great source of information for all things, including, inventory reports. Anything you type in here, it's going to walk you through how to best create that. And if there's videos associated with it, you'll see those as well.
Great. So we have a lot of wonderful questions. I will just preface the fact that we will be taking questions that relate, specifically to this reports function. A few questions are coming in that are wonderful, but speak to other parts of the platform and what we do at Artwork Archive. If you do have additional questions, and even if your report question doesn't get answered, to echo with the help docs and the support, you can always connect with us later afterwards. So with that, popular question is, Justin, for the logo, when including the logo on the reports, how do you make sure the logo doesn't show up too large?
Great question. You can take this little My Profile area. Gosh, this is why I love questions like this, because see how we use specific guidelines for this? Mm-hmm. We don't have those specific guidelines for this. And the reason we don't in this particular case is because we're auto sizing it to best position it on the page. Mm-hmm. I will talk with the team about giving some more specific resolution guidelines here, but in general, these things will naturally position themselves in what the report believes is the most optimized format. If someone is experiencing a situation where they feel it's coming in overly large, obviously you can resize that within whatever image editing program you use and adjust it accordingly. And if it persists, please let us know. That's not something we've run into before, but I'd be interested in learning more about it if that is the case.
Yeah, because I believe our header is formatted so that the space for the logo is takes up a certain amount of real estate.
It does, and it'll position it. Like if you look at the portfolio page, it's including it there at the bottom. Each report kind of incorporates logos in a different way. If you want, I can tell you, this is a personal opinion, does not necessarily represent everyone's view at Artwork Archive. My personal opinion is, to the extent that you can use your own header, your own letterhead, I love that, because it gives me full control over what the top of this report looks like. So in this particular report, like, you can generate letterhead that spans this whole top part and style it in any way you want, and it's always going to look consistent across your inventory reports, your invoices, etc. You're always going to have a consistent look and feel, and I personally prefer that to the logo route. And it's just as easy as just throwing something together and adhering to the this little guideline right here, which is the 1600 by 300 pixel.
Great. And actually, another question, and a question we get often, honestly, within customer support, is to the customization. So this specific question was about customization of the portfolio page in terms of spacing and fonts and adding a cover page. But I believe we can speak to customization at large for all of the reports.
Yeah, this is kind of a catch-22 for us. We are always going to opt for ease of use and kind of elegance or cleanliness of presentation, and that comes with some trade-offs. If everyone in the world had a work of art that was, called Untitled and had the same size name and the same dimensions and the same description length, this would be a different story. But since there is such a wide variety of information that is contained in these, we do our best to try to normalize the styling so it comes out looking clean and crisp each time, and the layout is consistent. And that means there is less formatting options. You will notice from a font standpoint that we basically have serif or sans serif as our font option. There's not a lot of deep customization stuff. So If you have preferences, so, those of you who are familiar with Artwork Archive know this, 90% of our evolution of the product is born out of user feedback. So we log every single recommendation that's ever made. When we find common themes, I think the artwork label is a great example. We've got a lot of people requesting some specific things. We're going to put that in production and give an option for that. Someone says, I want smaller labels. Or I want this support for Avery. When we hear that stuff enough, we build it. So if you have specific customizations you're looking for or specific spacing things, the portfolio page in general is one of those ones that we're showing a very basic one here. But I'm guessing that person has tried to add, provenance information or a bunch of additional information where it starts to span on multiple pages. Know that one of the other topics we're going to be discussing in November is some consolidated, better layout formats for this specific report that will address some of those things.
Great. All right, another question. And hopefully that answered the question about formatting COAs, certificate of authenticities as well, because that falls into the same bucket. Justin, a question you're gonna love answering because this has come up often with the Artwork Archive team. Can we create a non-art studio equipment inventory and report within Artwork Archive?
Gosh, I love, and it hurts me and pleases me in equal measure. So the short answer is no. That is one of those things that is kind of on the fence because there hasn't been enough requests for it to do kind of non-artwork related inventory items in the system so that you can have a studio report and perhaps create an inventory report of that for insurance purposes. I have been a big proponent for this. So if that's something a lot of you would like to see, please don't hesitate to write in and make that request. At this time, what we do see people doing is they either use My Docs to store their inventory report for their studio. So they're actually using our document storage tool, which is most commonly used to store your resume, your bio, your statement, proposals that you want to track, but also using it to store studio inventory or supply inventory, because just like everything, it turns it into a document that can be directly shared with your insurance company or your accountant or whoever else needs to be aware of that. So that's a workaround for now. But as it stands right now, our inventory reports are based on the artwork within it versus other things. I will make one side comment on that. We do have tons of people who enter frames as artwork because they just happen to either make their own or store their own or supply their own, and they use the system to create frames, to organize and manage their frames as well. That's just an aside.
Great. Someone's asking if you just repeat what a tear sheet is and how to use it.
Sure. Tear sheet, really most commonly used for situations where you want to do a quick and concise kind of streamlined version of what you have on offer. I would say as a general rule, I see this most commonly done for shows or, let's say it's the end of the year and you're going to do a holiday sale. So you can quickly create a tear sheet that this is what you're selling between now and the end of the year, and then send it out. And it's a really easy, handy price guide that you can, share with anybody who you think may be interested. It is created by clicking artwork and clicking new report, tear sheet, or once again, you can go to reports, click new report and select tear sheet. And here, I will say tear sheet is more commonly used when there's a potential need for things to be physically printed out. What we do see more common these days when people are having sales or wanting to create curated rooms or looks for potential clients is the private rooms feature. Yeah. By far is the most popular feature on the site right now, especially as the holidays start to approach. People are constantly creating, hey, here's my year-end inventory. Are you interested in this? And this is really a great way to create a virtual digital private room for people to explore. And it's a little more dynamic than the printed out report because I can get in there, see, zoomed in versions of it, learn more about it. I can inquire and ask questions. So it's a more dynamic viewing experience than the static report.
And I'm glad that you popped into private rooms, because even though it's not technically a report, there were questions about, when to use a private room versus a portfolio page. And then there was another question actually about Shannon is releasing a holiday collection. So awesome that you mentioned the holidays, and asking if she can separate that out to release to a particular email list.
Yeah. So in that particular case, I would do one of a couple things. I would either create a collection for that holiday work. So you can create collections for anything you want. I would just go ahead, click collection, holiday collection, and then you can do, whatever description you want. And once you create that collection, here, I'll actually just go ahead and create this. And let's say I want to add, you have the filters and you can add whatever works. In this particular case, I'm just going to pull a couple works over there into it to make it easy. I save this. And so now that collection exists in the system. So you can either generate a report very easily specific to that. So let's say I wanted to do a portfolio report for that collection, and I can name it, the holiday collection. I can choose what I want to have included in this report. And then filters here, I don't have to go reselect those because I've already got a collection. And I just do that. And I click move, and then that will be generated. I would personally say that, it's tough because private rooms are so widely used for that right now, particularly for things like holidays or pop-up shows. In that particular case, I would probably advise, still making that collection, but I would probably create, holiday collection room. And then I would give an in-depth description of why you created it, the details of the collection, anything else they may find interesting. You're not going to show things like inventory numbers or the piece's current location or, a lot of this other stuff. And then you can easily just create that room. And that is something that you can send directly to that list you talked about via the group sharing feature or with individual collectors. Because if you look at private rooms, it's got the same sharing feature that enables you to send to those groups that you've created, or with individual collectors or people in your contact list, or a plain email that you can just drop in there in case they're not in your contact list.
Great. Actually, I don't know the answer to this. I'm going to ask it. When you share to a group, does the email come out with a personal address for each member?
They're separate email. Like it doesn't put a bunch of the name, like you don't have to worry about a bunch of other names appearing at the top of it. It'll send individual ones. And the reason why the system does that is because it needs to make it. Let me go back to that private rooms. When you use the group feature, it actually is sending individual emails so you can see each of those individuals you've shared with. So I can see that I shared this room with Antoinette. And if you did this to a group, it would have all of the people you shared this room with. And then you can click directly into Antoinette's contact and see, oh, I recently shared that report, or I recently shared that room. That's why it breaks it out individually. Plus, there's privacy constraints and things like that. We don't want other people's names getting mixed up into communications like that.
Yeah. So to go back to QR codes, a lot of great questions around QR codes. A few people asked if the QR code expires. And I believe the only way to have the QR code expire would be to delete the report.
The work itself. Yeah.
The work itself. Okay.
Yeah. Because the QR code label is just generated off of that work. So if you remove that work, that QR code would cease to operate.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. I learn stuff every day too. And then Duke was wondering if the QR code can be linked to one's representative art gallery sales site, avoiding exclusive agreement conflicts.
Right now, it can't be. That QR. So this is a great example of something that's also being talked about. To you'll see the options here. Let me see, inventory or QR labels. You see, we have an internal, a public page link. We are debating the idea of adding third-party URL in which it would generate a QR code specific to the URL you put in. So in your particular case, this could be that gallery's storefront for your particular work or your collection. That is something that, if we continue to see requests for something like that, we will be adding to it. Then that would mean that when someone scanned that, instead of going to your public page, that appears, it would go to that gallery's version. One thing I will say though is, even if you use this public page link, let's just look at this really quick. Let me look at her public profile page. So let's say someone just clicked on the QR code for this and it took them here. You very, very easily could show I have locations turned off, but you could enable location on your public profile and it would show them exactly where they could find this work and purchase this work from. Similarly, if that gallery has a specific purchase link for that piece, you could put that purchase link when you're editing that piece. And if someone clicked this, it would go to that gallery's purchase page rather than your own. So those are just easy ways to get around that right now.
Helpful. To take a step back and to go into some nitty gritty, there's been a few questions. When you went into the inventory report, Justin, and showed how you can include a high res image link, questions around, where does this link come from? Does this link go to the public profile page? Can you just walk through what that all means?
Okay, so we never, ever, unless you have 100% control over what, if anything, you make public. And if you choose to make things public on the public profile, this is a lower downsized web viewable image. And you see, I'm trying to exaggerate the sound of my mouse clicking. I have right click disabled to prevent people from downloading or copying it. Even if they could copy it, it wouldn't be the high resolution version of it because it's a web enabled view. When it comes to the high resolution link, you will see that, so Artwork Archive basically only asks you to upload one image. So we typically we always recommend you use a high resolution image because you and only you will have access to that. We resize it for the thumbnail or web view or print view or anything like that. So you never have to worry about doing that extra work. Additionally, if you want access to that original image file, you can click this and it will show you that original image file. I can share that single image directly with someone or download it myself. But in the case of the inventory report, that magic feature that makes it really easy for you to send multiple images at once is actually borrowing this link. So when you look at that inventory report, if I click this button right here, under each of the thumbnails in this inventory report, it's going to have, for access to the high resolution, click this link basically. And that link will pull the original version. And this is great because a lot of times galleries require that higher resolution for printing, but it's of course not something you want to share with everyone else.
Great. So Rebecca asked, I've always uploaded low res image files. Should I be uploading my high res ones? I think that's a great time to talk about just the object records versus reports, public profile, etc. How these.
Yeah, I would say we always recommend uploading high resolution versions. This is, and when I say high resolution version, the system stores up to 30 megs. It's, between, us and this webinar, it's actually a little bit higher, but those are huge. I mean, those are billboard size files. So take advantage of that. Use this as the central repository of where you're storing those originals. For those of you who are photographers and have super, super high res, raw files, we're probably not the best solution for that because those can get into the hundreds of megabytes. But for everyone else that's just taking high quality, high resolution photos of your artwork, always use the high resolution version because it's going to be so much more versatile. And you don't have to worry about resizing it for a specific purpose because we do that automatically for you and never share that high resolution version externally unless you are requesting to share that with your specific gallery or a specific individual. So yeah, that's by far our that is where we stand on that topic. One more thing, if any of these are going to be printed reports, portfolio page is a great example. It is going to look better if you have a high resolution version here, because we're going to pull the high resolution version over. So this looks best in print format as well.
Yeah, versus being pixelated.
But also, I say that is our recommendation, but don't beat yourself up. If you have a nicely photographed lower resolution version, most people are consuming these images on the web, and the web has a really low bar for what can still look good. So if it's presenting well on the web, I wouldn't over stress about feeling the need to, or any compulsion to redo everything and get super high res versions up there.
And great follow-up question from Jackie. For those that have multiple images for one artwork, like sculpture or detail shots, will high-res share? So the links, I'm assuming this is referencing, go to only the first image, or when including those high-res links, will it show all the images?
Gosh, that's a great question that I don't know the answer to. If you give a list, if you put your email in the Q&A, I will look at that and get back to you. I think it includes the links to all of them, but I don't want to give an answer and be mistaken. So if you drop your email in there, we'll get back to you within the hour.
Yeah, I'm going to put the team at Artwork Archive so that anyone from the team can answer in case one of us is offline. So yeah, so again, I put that in the chat box. Team@artworkarchive.com is the best place to reach us with follow-up questions if your questions are not answered. I'm going to jump into this question because it's twofold for things to share. So someone asked if you can filter tear sheets by gallery. So one of the great things about what Justin showed, when you go within a contact record and you can see what you have shared with that contact or that gallery. So for that question, if you were to go into your gallery contact record, you could see all the reports and you could see your tear sheets. But I'm going to take another tack to answering the question, and this actually includes some best practices, because we've seen this go on for a decade plus, is when you're creating reports, there is a field for naming your report. So to make sure that you don't have tear sheet upon tear sheet upon tear sheet, naming your report so that you can quickly find it when you are sorting by report type will be really helpful. Justin, anything to add upon that?
No, I'm just trying to replicate that on the screen as you're talking. Yeah, you can, and by naming it, you always have kind of easy reference here on what it was used for. And remember, as you're sharing these things or doing anything with these things, it is recording who it was shared with, when it was shared, etc. So you can always see that reference of the contact you shared that with.
Yeah. This is a tricky widget. Can you turn off watermarks on images / reports when you're sharing your reports?
Can you turn off watermarks?
Like
so we don't watermark just because, so we do a lot to prevent copy threat or theft, etc. We use the lower resolution versions. When sharing on the web, we have 72 versus the 300. I mean, we disable right click. So we're constantly employing methods that don't significantly detract from the image viewing process, like a watermark, when sharing things online. So I would say that 99% of our users do not use watermarks at all. So we don't do any watermarking on our end. So there's nothing to toggle on or toggle off.
Great. That's really helpful. And I'm just going to, I was typing a response to a chat, so I'll save my response for the chat and go into another question, which is, this is great. So with the portfolio report, a question about, is it possible to create a portfolio report of your published work with the intent of it being nice to create a catalog of your published work?
We do have a lot of people that use the portfolio page for their catalog raisonné or for things that are similar in purpose, like coffee table books, or let's say I just got done with a specific series of work that I wanted to create a little pamphlet for. We do see that commonly used. And the reason for that is, in addition to being able to do that kind of basic display on that portfolio page, you'll also see as you dive deeper down, you can have a much more, elaborate description or the provenance of a particular piece of work if you'd like to, include that, the publication history, the exhibition history, etc. So that report can really be quite robust. And definitely we have, countless collectors and institutions using the portfolio pages for, coffee table books, their own, internal, printed record, etc. And so there's no reason why an artist couldn't do it too. I actually have seen artists, particularly referencing back to that example I gave with the series, when they come up with a new body of work, putting it together in a portfolio page, printing it out and handing it off for review.
Great. This is a good time. A few questions about the recording. So we are recording this session. We will be sharing the recording. You'll have access to it after the webinar. We send out our follow-up the next day. So tomorrow, Friday, midday, you'll get an email from us with the recording. We also post them onto our YouTube channel as well. And I will link to our YouTube channel in the chat. So you all have access to that, because we have a lot of great video tutorials on specific features like QR codes or private rooms.
And by the way, John, for the person that asked about the link for additional photos, if that also includes the supplementary photos or complementary photos, right now it just includes the main. If that's, once again, if that's something that you all would like to see, the ability to include additional photos as well, that's something we can modify if needed.
Okay, great. That's really good to know. I'm going to pop over to another question. This is a good brain exercise. We love things like this. How do you generate a report, Justin, of your work submitted to a gallery when you show multiple times during the year with them? For those ongoing relationships.
So, gosh, I wish I can talk to that person specifically. So, are they looking to share? So they're looking to do a report on what is currently with that gallery, or?
Yeah, let's pretend like that's Linda. If you want to specify more, feel free to put it in the Q&A. But yeah, how do you show the long-term relationship with your gallery and what has been shown?
Yeah, great. So filters are your friend for finding out kind of specifics on where something is at any given time, what's at that particular gallery, as well as, countless other parameters. When it comes to that relationship you're talking about, in addition to being able to see what is currently at this particular gallery, I can also go click into showing history. And showing history will show anything that's current, as well as things from the past. What was sold there, what wasn't sold. See, this is sold elsewhere. So showing history is a really magnificent kind of feature to the location tracking that gives you a full historical on anything that you have had that has ever come through the halls of this particular establishment. And in this particular case, it's a gallery. And if it's sold elsewhere, it'll be noted. If it wasn't sold, you have those details there. So hopefully that covered that question.
Great. Let's see, we have 5 minutes left. So still time to submit your questions. A little bit of a smaller ticky-tacky question is, when you use the group feature, Justin, can there be a personalized message to everyone?
So if I'm using the group feature for a particular note, that whatever you put in this message is going to go to each person. So it would not be, it's a generalized message, even though it's going to an individual, it's a generalized message. So if this was going to a group and there was a Kathy in the group and a John in the group, and you put, hey, Kathy, et cetera, and this, that is going to show to the group. So for cases where you want to send information that is personalized, I would do individual sharing versus group sharing. And we're really not, the vast majority of our users, are using a third party for their newsletters like MailChimp or Constant Contact or their mass mailers. This is meant to facilitate sharing with smaller groups and individuals. rather than being kind of a mass market newsletter tool. When you've got platforms like MailChimp that exist that are just so great at what they do, we tend to not replicate that. We facilitate getting your contacts over there, but we try to not replicate functionality.
Great. And Linda said, yes, showing history answered her question.
Awesome.
So that's wonderful. And it's great that you were able to show that, because I feel like location history is one of those hidden gems. And one of the reasons why we love having these webinars to show you all what can be done. Let's see, I believe we've covered, one last question, because I don't believe we have this functionality. Can you produce a report from press files that you have uploaded to My Docs? So this may be a product feature request.
You can't. So, My Docs obviously can store all of your, press links and press clippings or anything you've scanned. But we don't have a report generated for that. We've got the publication history feature that can be included at the individual artwork level, but we don't have anything purpose-built for press reports.
Yeah. And there were, you can speak to this too, Justin. There were a number of questions about QuickBooks, integrations with discussing expenses. And we do have, we are planning a, financials and expenses session for the future. Is there anything that you want to speak to within that?
Well, super quick response to that is you can export in a spreadsheet format that can be imported into most of the major third-party applications. We are also actually looking into a specific QuickBooks and Xero export that the fields would match directly, so you don't have to do any copying and pasting on your end. And as Alyssian mentioned, we're going to be doing a Thrive probably kicking off the beginning of 2022, maybe mid to late January, specifically on financials in Artwork Archive. How to best prep for tax time, how to best prep for analytics for, best practices in expense and revenue tracking, just some general business intelligence related stuff for artists, just some things we've picked up over the last decade and watching, what are the most common traits when it comes to revenue and expense tracking for, successful artists we think would be beneficial to everyone. And that'll be sometime kicking off the new year.
Wonderful. And I think that is it. Michelle, I just want to quickly say, I see your question about adding a personal note or price offer. One of the great things with a lot of our reports is there is a note section, so you can customize the reports for your particular client. So make sure to check that out.
Yeah, I think that's a great closing comment. Just because I gave some regimented examples on how these things could be used, I cannot tell you how often I see these things. Like all of them have custom titles or notes or things like that, so they can be repurposed to suit your specific needs. To conclude, really thank everyone for taking the time to learn a bit more about this. Don't hesitate to reach out to us via team@artworkarchive.com or via the chat. We love submissions, we love questions. It's how we get better. And yeah, have a great weekend.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Again, this recording will be shared out tomorrow, and it will also be shared out to those that could not attend. So if you have any friends saying, shoot, I missed the event, if they registered, we'll have the recording, and then we'll also post it on YouTube. So please feel free to share it with your fellow artist friends as well. We love getting this information into your hands. So thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day and week ahead. Thanks, Justin.
Yep. Thanks. Bye.